2022 10-hour federal tax law. Flashcard 1. Generally, under the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, which of the following major items cannot be subtracted from gross income? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is moving expenses. Flashcard 2. For 2022, all of the following statements are true regarding the higher additional standard deduction under the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act except. Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is, the taxpayer can claim the higher standard deduction for a dependent. Flashcard 3. Kevin and Jennifer are married and filing a joint tax return. They have a combined taxable income of $80,000. They have 4 children, whom they claim as dependents. When they file their 2022 income tax return, Kevin and Jennifer's taxable income will be reduced by what amount for their personal exemption deduction? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is $0. Flashcard 4. If the taxpayer obtains a court decree of annulment, which holds that no valid marriage ever existed, he or she is considered unmarried even if he or she filed joint returns for earlier years. The taxpayer must file amended returns Form 1040X claiming which of the following filing status for all tax years that are affected by the annulment and not closed by the statute of limitations for filing a tax return? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is single. Flashcard 5. Oscar is divorced. His dependent son Sam lived with him all year. Property taxes of $1,000 and mortgage interest of $5,000 on the home where he and Sam live are divided equally with his ex-wife. Oscar also paid all the utilities of $150 per month. What amount of the yearly household expenses can Oscar use to determine if he qualifies for the head of household filing status? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is $4,800. Flashcard 6. Which of the following is not an advantage of filing a joint income tax return? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is, joint filers can claim double the amount of the personal exemption deduction. Flashcard 7. Bill and Karen Green filed a joint return showing Karen's wages of $50,000 and Bill's self-employment income of $10,000. The IRS audited their return and found that Bill did not report $20,000 of self-employment income. The additional income resulted in a $6,000 understated tax, plus interest and penalties. After obtaining a legal separation from Bill, Karen filed Form 8807 request for innocent spouse relief to request separation of liability relief. The IRS proved that Karen actually knew about the $20,000 of additional income at the time she signed the joint return. Bill is liable for all of the understated tax, interest, and penalties because all of it was due to his unreported income. Which of the following is true regarding Karen's liability for the understated tax, interest, and penalties due for the unreported income of $20,000? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is, the IRS can collect the entire $6,000 plus interest and penalties from either Karen or Bill because they are jointly and individually liable for it. Flashcard 8. Ray, who is single and 22 years old, was unemployed for a few months during 2021. He earned $6,700 in wages before he was laid off, and he received $1,400 in unemployment compensation afterwards. He had no other income. Even though he had gross income of $8,100, he did not have to pay income tax because his gross income was less than the filing requirement for a single person under age 65. He filed a return only to have his withheld income tax refunded to him. In 2022, Ray began regular work as an independent contractor and earned $28,000. Ray made no estimated tax payments in 2022 and he did owe tax at the end of the year. What amount does Ray owe for the underpayment penalty in 2022? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is $555. Flashcard 9. Some dividends may not be qualified dividends even if they are shown in Box 1B of Form 1099 DIV. Which of the following is a qualified dividend? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is, dividends paid from a stock held for more than 60 days during the 121-day period that begins 60 days before the ex-dividend date. Flashcard 10. Bruce owns XYZ Co. common stock, which he bought in 2019. He was paid a dividend of $500 for the current year. These qualified dividends are generally taxed at what tax rate? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is, long-term capital gains tax rate. Flashcard 11. A cafeteria plan provides participants an opportunity to receive qualified benefits on a pre-tax basis. It is a written plan that allows employees to choose between receiving cash or taxable benefits instead of certain qualified benefits for which the law provides an exclusion from wages. A cafeteria plan can include all of the following benefits except Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is educational assistance. Flashcard 12. A taxpayer goes to a casino and wins $10,000. The casino withholds $500 for federal income taxes. What is the proper tax treatment by the taxpayer? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is, the taxpayer must report the winnings on Schedule 1 Form 1040 and can claim the amount of federal income tax withheld on page 2 of Form 1040. Flashcard 13. Jean Knox received certain income benefits in 2022. She received $1,400 of state unemployment insurance benefits, $2,000 from a federal unemployment trust fund, and $3,700 workers' compensation received for an occupational injury. What amount of the payments must Jean include in her income? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is $3,400. Flashcard 14. A 62-year-old married taxpayer files a married filing separately tax return and lives apart from her spouse for an entire taxable year. What is the taxpayer's base amount for computing taxable Social Security benefits? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is $25,000. Flashcard 15. Which of the following statements is incorrect regarding the annual gift tax exemption? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is, the taxpayer gives a gift if he or she gives property and expects to receive something of at least equal value in return. Flashcard 16. Sophia sold a painting that she held as an investment on an online auction website for $100. She bought the painting for $20 at a garage sale years ago. Sophia should report what amount as a capital gain on her Schedule D Form 1040? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is $80. Flashcard 17. Leah and Aaron are both teachers. They are married and file a joint tax return. During 2022, Lee had $450 in qualified educator expenses and Aaron had $100 in qualified educator expenses. They meet all other requirements to qualify for the educator expense deduction. What is the total amount Lee and Aaron can claim for the educator expense deduction on their joint income tax return? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is $550. Flashcard 18. Jane is a single taxpayer with a modified adjusted gross income MAGI of $50,000. When her daughter, Soria, was born in 2021, two separate Coverdell education savings accounts CESA were set up for her, one by Jane and one by her daughter's grandfather. In 2022, Jane contributed $1,000 and the grandfather contributed $600 to Soria's CESA. Also, in 2022, Jane establishes one CESA account for her son, Edgar. During 2022, she can contribute what amount to her son Edgar's CESA? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is $2,000. Flashcard 19. In January 2022, Patricia takes out a $500,000 mortgage to purchase a main home with a fair market value of $800,000. In February 2022, she takes out a $250,000 home equity loan to put an addition on the main home. Both loans are secured by the main home, and the total does not exceed the cost of the home. During 2022, Patricia paid interest of $7,000 on the loans and will therefore be able to deduct what amount of the interest paid on her income tax return? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is $7,000. Flashcard 20. The working condition benefits exclusion applies to property and services an employer provides to an employee so that the employee can perform his or her job. Which of the following is not an example of working condition benefits? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is, a service or property provided under a flexible spending account in which the employer agrees to provide the employee, over a time period, a certain level of unspecified non-cash benefits with a predetermined cash value. Flashcard 21. Which of the following taxpayers is eligible to claim the standard deduction on his or her tax return? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is, an individual who claims the earned income tax credit and the child tax credit. Flashcard 22. The rule for involuntary conversions does not apply to which of the following? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is, like-kind exchanges. Flashcard 23. In 2022, Anna and Matt earned $420,000 of adjusted gross income and figure $50,000 of total itemized deductions on their Schedule A, comprised entirely of qualified home mortgage interest and gifts to charity. They are married and are filing jointly. Anna and Matt can deduct what amount of itemized deductions on their income tax return? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is $50,000. Flashcard 24. Stella is age 13. During 2022, she received the following income: dividends of $1,000, tax-exempt interest of $100, wages of $2,100, capital gains of $300, taxable interest of $1,200, and capital losses of $200. The dividends were qualified dividends on stock given to her by her grandparents. When figuring the tax for certain children who have unearned income kitty tax, Stella's unearned income is what amount? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is $2,300. Flashcard 25. Nathan donated $100 to the American Red Cross, $200 to the Boy Scouts of America, and $300 to his neighbor whose home was destroyed by an earthquake. What amount can Nathan use to determine his deduction for charitable contributions? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is $300. Flashcard 26. For tax years beginning after December 31, 2017 until January 1, 2026, a taxpayer can claim itemized deductions for certain miscellaneous itemized deductions to the extent that the taxpayer's total miscellaneous expenses exceed 2% of the taxpayer's adjusted gross income AGI for which of the following items? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is expenses an individual taxpayer incurs for tax preparation. Flashcard 27. A refundable tax credit is a tax credit that can reduce tax liability below zero. It is possible to receive a tax refund from this type of credit. Which of the following is a refundable tax credit? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is adoption credit. Flashcard 28. Generally, the Earned Income Tax Credit (IC) is available for which of the following taxpayers? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is resident aliens filing joint returns who have earned income and adjusted gross income AGI within certain limits. Flashcard 29. Sandy is a single taxpayer. She has a $29,000 student loan. She pays $308 each month with $121 of that payment going towards student loan interest. Over the first year in repayment, she repays $3,696 overall, $2,244 in principal and $1,452 in interest. Her modified adjusted gross income in 2022 was $45,000. Assuming she meets all other criteria, Sandy's student loan interest deduction is what amount? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is $1,452. Flashcard 30. In 2022, Yvette pays $3,000 in qualifying educational expenses in her first year at State College. Her modified adjusted gross income AGI during the year is $27,000. Assuming she meets all other criteria, Yvette's American Opportunity Tax Credit (AOC) is equal to what amount? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is $2,000. Flashcard 31. Bruce and Tony Harper are married and file a joint tax return. For 2022, their AGI is $75,000. Tony is attending a local college and eligible educational institution to earn credits toward a degree in nursing. She already has a bachelor's degree in history and wants to become a nurse. In August 2022, Tony paid $5,000 of qualified education expenses for her fall 2022 semester. Bruce and Tony can claim a lifetime learning credit on their joint income tax return for what amount? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is $1,000. Flashcard 32. Mark and Sarah have recently adopted a little girl from China. They incurred various expenses throughout this adoption process. Which one of the following is not a qualified adoption expenses for Mark and Sarah? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is expenses reimbursed by an employer under a written qualified adoption assistance program. Flashcard 33. Patrick and Natalie Simons sold stock that resulted in a short-term capital loss of $5,000. They had no other capital transactions during the year. Their taxable income was $10,000. How much of the capital loss is deductible on their joint return and how much must be carried over to the next year? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is $3,000 loss, $2,000 carryover. Flashcard 34. Jill inherited 100 shares of GoTech Inc. stock when her mother died on October 21, 2019. The fair market value of the stock was $20 per share. Her mother paid $200 per share when she purchased the stock March 1, 2012. If Jill sells all 100 shares for $50 per share on July 3, 2022, how should she report the sale on her income tax return? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is $3,000 long-term capital gain. Flashcard 35. Which of the following statements is false regarding capital gains and losses? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is, when a taxpayer carries over any capital loss, its character will be long-term. Flashcard 36. Which of the following is not an example of a barter arrangement? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is, a babysitting cooperative run by neighborhood parents. Flashcard 37. If the taxpayer's employer gives him or her virtual currency, such as Bitcoin, as payment for his or her services, the taxpayer must include the fair market value of the currency in his or her income. The fair market value of virtual currency paid as wages is subject to all of the following except, think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is, value-added tax. Flashcard 38. Alvaro is a self-employed contractor and was living in a townhouse in Montana he had owned and used as his main home since 2013. He got a job in California and sold his townhouse in 2022. Based on Alvaro's new place of employment and the home he sold, which of the following is true? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is, he is entitled to claim a reduced maximum exclusion of gain from the sale. Flashcard 39. Luis Sanchez is a single taxpayer who has an alternative minimum taxable income AMT of $150,000 for 2022. Therefore, his alternative minimum tax AMT exemption is equal to what amount? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is $75,900. Flashcard 40. Which of the following statements about a sole proprietorship is correct? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is, a sole proprietorship is a type of business entity that is owned and operated by one individual and in which there is no legal distinction between the owner and the business. Flashcard 41. People who are in an independent trade, business, or profession in which they offer their services to the general public are generally independent contractors. However, whether a person is an independent contractor or an employee depends on the facts in each case. Which of the following individuals is an independent contractor? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is, an individual is an independent contractor if the payer has the right to control or direct only the result of the work and not what will be done and how it will be done. Flashcard 42. For which of the following situations is the taxpayer not required to file Schedule H household employment taxes? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is, paid $2,000 to his or her father to help install a new fence. Flashcard 43. On November 22 of 2022, David Charles purchased a dishwasher for his rental property. The appliance was delivered on December 7, 2022, but was not installed and ready for use until January 3 of 2023. When is the dishwasher considered to be placed in service for the purposes of depreciation? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is, January 3, 2023. Flashcard 44. Silverleaf, a retail bakery, traded 2 ovens having a total adjusted basis of $680 for a new oven costing $1,320. They received an $800 trade-in allowance for the old ovens and paid $520 in cash for the new oven. The bakery also traded a used van with an adjusted basis of $4,500 for a new van costing $9,000. They received a $4,800 trade-in allowance on the used van and paid $4,200 in cash for the new van. What portion of the new property's basis qualifies for the Section 179 deduction? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is $4,720. Flashcard 45. If taxes are not paid, and the IRS is not notified why the taxes cannot be paid, the law requires that enforcement action be taken. However, the IRS will generally not take enforced collection actions during which of the following circumstances? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is, all of the above. Flashcard 46. The Department of Treasury's Bureau of the Fiscal Service, BFS, issues IRS tax refunds, and Congress authorizes BFS to conduct the Treasury Offset Program (TOP). Through the TOP program, the Bureau of Fiscal Service BFS may apply part or all of a tax refund to pay a taxpayer's debt for which of the following unpaid debts? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is, past due child support payments. Flashcard 47. Harinder originally reported $39,750 as his adjusted gross income on his 2021 Form 1040. He received another Form W-2 for $500 after he filed his original income tax return. Which of the following statements is true? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is, Harinder should use Form 1040X amended U.S. individual income tax return to correct the Form 1040. Flashcard 48. If a taxpayer filed his or her return on April 15, 2020, the due date for the return that year, paid $100 with the return, and then determined the amount of tax was overpaid, he or she has until what date to claim a refund? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is April 15, 2023. Flashcard 49. A taxpayer should increase his or her withholding on Form W for employees withholding certificate for which of the following reasons? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is, he or she has income from sources other than jobs or self-employment that is not subject to withholding. Flashcard 50. If an employer fails to file a correct Form W-2 by the due date and cannot show reasonable cause, he or she may be subject to a penalty as provided under Section 6721. For which of the following reason does the penalty not apply to the employer? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is, the employer makes an inconsequential error that does not prevent the SSA/IRS from processing the Form W-2.